a very aggravating story about Gavin Newsom. This is going to piss you off. So he is the Democratic governor of California, and he will have played a major role in the Democrats winning back control of the House of Representatives if that happens come November. You might recall when Texas began redrawing its maps on orders from Donald Trump to create 5 reliably red congressional districts. When Texas began doing it, Newsom, the governor, Democrat of California, warned Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, don't do it because I'll respond in kind. I'll create 5 new reliably blue congressional districts to cancel out your reliably red congressional districts. Texas didn't think Democrats would do something like that. Newsom did it the right way. He took it to the people on Election Day last November with Prop 50, also known as the Election Rigging Response Act. And that Proposition 50 asked California voters, would you support giving Democrats in the state legislature the right to redraw the maps, congressional maps, in order to respond to Texas's congressional maps? It was a tit for tat. It was offering tat to Greg Abbott's droopy tit. And Prop 50 passed with 64% of the vote. Now, Republicans try to challenge it in the courts, and the Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to touch this. So Gavin Newsom, I have problems with him, but he's going to be on the ballot going into the midterms. He's not running for anything. In fact, he won't be a governor a year from now. He's term limited out. And the timing couldn't be perfect for him to launch a run for president. It's perfect. Midterms end. He's a lame duck. There's a new governor who's been elected, California governor. And so he sets up shop in New Hampshire, South Carolina, right after the midterms. Maybe he'll even try for Iowa, even though Democrats have marginalized Iowa. It used to be part of the nominating process, but the 2020 Iowa caucuses were a debacle, and so they're kicking off. They haven't decided yet, but they seem to want to turn South Carolina into the Iowa, which gives black voters more pull. So Newsom, I like him. He didn't do socialized medicine in California, even though he had the votes. He had a bill. It was ready to go. He had an opportunity to turn California into the first state that offered single payer. Didn't do it. Wasn't interested. He's a terrific politician. You know, they did a recall on him. Remember that? Didn't work. He knows how to fight politically, and he's a thorn in Trump's side. I don't think there's any politician better, more fearless when it comes to taking on Donald Trump. So the question is, suppose Trump's not on the ballot, then do we need Gavin Newsom? I mean, if somehow Trump is running, maybe Newsom, maybe. But there's a problem with the map. The electoral map is pretty much set. There are just a few swing states. In California, having a candidate from California adds nothing to the map for Democrats. We know California is going to go blue no matter who. So you gotta add new real estate to the map. You know, Kennedy picked Lyndon Johnson because Johnson brought Texas. Clinton was from Arkansas, and he picked Gore from Tennessee because he knew the North, the Democrats have the North. We need the South. So on paper, Newsom seems great, but he adds 0 to the electoral map. 0. I say, if you want to win, if you just want to win, you got to start looking at Roy Cooper, who was the Democratic governor of North Carolina up until January of last year. He is now running for the Senate seat vacated by Republican Tom Tillis. This Senate seat is starting to look flippable, and it's got Republicans scared. Here is Donald Trump. Now, I know I'm going to play you Donald Trump. Here he is last week. Here he is talking to soldiers stationed at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. Here is Donald Trump doing what no commander-in-chief has ever done before because he's not allowed to. But Trump did it anyway. He went before soldiers and politicked. A president is not supposed to be political when it comes to our armed services. But that didn't stop J.D. Vance, who was vice president. He turned a speech before the Marines in San Diego into an attack on Democrats. Here is Donald Trump turning an address before soldiers in Fort Bragg, named after a genocidal slaveholding maniac who contributed to the Confederate loss. Renaming. They was stripped of the name Bragg. Hegseth brought it back. Not a good general. It was a Confederate general. Helped lose the war. But here is Donald Trump down in North Carolina at Fort Bragg, turning his speech before the soldiers into a campaign stop. Remember, everyone in this audience takes their orders from Trump. He is their commander-in-chief. You don't do this. Here is Donald Trump attacking the former governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper, who is now running for Senate. Democrat. He's running for Senate in North Carolina. Looks like he could flip the seat blue. Here's Trump telling his soldiers to vote for the Republican Michael Whatley. Now, I don't like to play clips of Trump, but this is evidence for his impeachment.
But we want to keep this area safe, and we can't do that without the leaders, and your ex-governor is not one of them. It'd be a disaster if he got in. And one of the things that I just mentioned and you saw the monster that killed an innocent young Ukrainian girl a couple of months ago, slitting her throat from behind. And this was the governor that allowed this man to get out and to do that. We don't do that. We don't do that. Everybody knew he was trouble. Many, many crimes, one of the worst pasts I've ever seen. And she sat down, she had her throat slit. And that's not going to happen with Michael Whatley, that I can tell you. So I just want to tell you it's very important because our military has to be protected. Our people have to be protected. And they will decimate our military. Every time you come in as a Republican, a lot of Republicans, they come in, they don't do anything about it. I do beyond what anyone's ever done, not even close.
That is an impeachable offense. It's probably not a criminal offense, but you, under normal circumstances, you would impeach a president for talking that way in front of soldiers. And by the way, that's false about Roy Cooper. The murder happened last year. Cooper wasn't governor. The man arrested for the murder was released from prison while Cooper was governor. He was serving time for robbery with a dangerous weapon. It wasn't the governor's decision to let him out. You know, we let people out, and that is decided by the Department of Adult Correction and the parole board. Doesn't matter, right? The point is Republicans are terrified that Roy Cooper, Democrat, is going to flip the North Carolina Senate seat blue. And if he does that, it makes him the perfect candidate for president or vice president. Now, he says he's not running for president. If he can flip a Senate seat in North Carolina blue, that means he can win the South, which the last Democratic presidential candidate to win North Carolina was Obama in 2008. And that's been it. He couldn't do it in 2012. We think of North Carolina as a swing state. Josh Stein, I think, is the new governor. He's a Democrat. So Roy Cooper brings real estate to the electoral map, and so does this guy, Andy Beshear. He's the Democratic governor of Kentucky. If Democrats want to win the presidency, I believe you go with Cooper and Beshear, or Beshear and Cooper. They bring Kentucky and North Carolina. They bring real estate to the electoral map. Gavin Newsom brings nothing to the map. Zero. I like Newsom. He's very sharp and charismatic. And I love the way he debates. I used to watch him with Sean Hannity, and he gets the best of Sean Hannity, and Sean Hannity still has him back on the show. Newsom debated Ron DeSantis on Fox News back in November of 2023. This was right around, the lead up to the Iowa caucuses. DeSantis was still running for president. People all thought he could beat Trump. Trump wouldn't debate him. He wouldn't debate anybody. And Newsom debated him. It was Sean Hannity's idea to have Newsom debate DeSantis on Fox News. And, when you watch Newsom with Sean Hannity, he's really Newsom is sharp. He destroys Hannity. And to Hannity's credit, he has Newsom back. But when Newsom went up against Ron DeSantis in November of 2023, it didn't go well. It was disappointing. I was expecting Newsom to mop the floor with DeSantis, and Newsom couldn't do it. So there's also the issue of his ex-wife being Don Jr.'s ex-girlfriend, Kimberly Gargoyle. That is an actual picture of Kimberly Gargoyle. She's our ambassador to Greece after Don Jr. and she broke up. And she's something else. She used to be Mrs. Gavin Newsom, and she used to be with Fox News. She had to leave Fox News, allegedly because she was sexually harassing the employees. And I have no doubt one of the reasons Sean Hannity loves Gavin Newsom, and one of the reasons Sean Hannity wants Gavin Newsom to run for president, is because on her way out, Kimberly Gargoyle told the people at Fox News, if Newsom gets the nomination and runs for president, I'll say things about the marriage. An ex-wife can do a lot of damage. I wouldn't want I've had some ex-wives. I wouldn't want Kimberly Gargoyle as an ex-wife while I'm running for president. I like Gavin Newsom. I would vote for him in a heartbeat. He's a lightning rod. He invites it. And I like that about him. And now, this is where I get really upset. I save this for the end because it makes my head explode. He's being accused of racism. The chair of the Republican Party in California said Newsom should be embarrassed for what he said to a black audience while promoting his new book, Young Man in a Hurry. He said it during an interview at the Rialto Center for the Arts in Atlanta, Georgia. He was being interviewed by Atlanta's Democratic black mayor, Andre Dickens. And Newsom, right now, is the subject of what the black mayor of Atlanta has called MAGA manufactured outrage. So I'm just going to go over this for a second. So one of the reasons I keep an irregular schedule is I like to check my facts. I'm not trying to be holier than thou, but I don't like to do a show unless I triple check everything. And I invite my listeners to correct me. I don't want to be wrong. I am wrong, but I don't want to be wrong. Go over some things here and to show you how careless, in the true sense of the word, where people say things and they couldn't care less whether it's true, and they don't correct themselves. So here's the accusation. Newsom is accused of saying this is the accusation. Newsom is accused of saying to a black audience, as well as the black mayor of Atlanta, an all-black audience, he said, I think it was Sunday night, he said, because of my, this is how they're spinning it, because of my dyslexia, I'm like you. I'm no better than you. I can't read. I'm like you. And so the Republican attack machine, you don't need AI. You don't need artificial intelligence. You need lack of intelligence. You just need enough stupid Americans to believe the Republican attack machine, which lacks all critical thinking. They've recut it or repurposed it and reframed what I think was a beautiful and emotional moment where Gavin Newsom talked about his dyslexia. One of his calling cards is how beautifully he talks about dyslexia, how everyone thought he was stupid, how he thought he was stupid because teachers didn't know how to address dyslexia. The fact is, some of the most brilliant people in the world are dyslexic. In comedy, some of the great comedians, some of the great comedy writers are dyslexia because it's a gift. It's a challenge, but it allows you to see things differently and better. So if you're lucky enough to have teachers and parents, dyslexia can be, it's got to be very tough, but it can be turned into a gift to the world, not just for you, but for the world. But you need the right teaching and parenting, and you need a social safety net. So I'm going to play you the clip in its entirety for a second. I almost put my fist through a wall. That's why I'm saving this for the last. So what was cherry-picked was Newsom talking to the black mayor of Atlanta, saying to him, "I'm dyslexic. I can't read. I'm not better than you." And then he turned to the crowd and said, "I'm like you. I'm no better than you." And Republicans jumped on this, insisting that Newsom said to a crowd of black people, "I can't read. I'm just like you." Well, first of all, the crowd was mostly white. And you could see, the mayor's eyes were welling up as Newsom talked about his dyslexia. I'll play you the clip. It's touching. It actually, I'm not going to play you the last part. The last part choked me up, actually. It doesn't matter what Newsom said. As far as the attack machine is concerned, he told a crowd of black people, "I'm just like you because I can't read." Megyn Kelly was fired from NBC News for saying she didn't have a problem with blackface. She didn't understand what was wrong with blackface. She got fired from NBC News for saying that, but she carried a lot of racist baggage with her. She should have been fired from Fox News before she came to NBC when she told kids Jesus and Santa are white, they're not black. She said, "That's a fact. Now get over it." Megyn Kelly has trafficked in racist dog whistles and outright racism for 2 decades. I played clips of her talking about how great Nick Fuentes is, the Nazi. The self-professed Nazi, Nick Fuentes. She said, we need to listen to him. He's got some bright ideas. So she immediately went after Gavin Newsom. And I'm just going to read you her quote. She said on her show, "Unbelievable. I mean, very obvious in its racism. Sitting in front of a predominantly black audience," it was predominantly white, "sitting in front of a predominantly black audience saying, quote, 'I'm like you, I can't read. And I got a 960 on the SAT. And then Megyn Kelly says, "What the F? That's what it's like to relate to black people? You're dumb? You bomb tests and you cannot read?" She goes, "That's unbelievable." And then she says, "That's actually what he said. Like you kind of can't believe it until you hear it outright." No, that's not actually what he said. You didn't hear it outright. She's got, 1 million listeners? She's not going to issue a correction. She's going to move on. And then Gavin Newsom's friend, Sean Hannity, tweeted, "Gavin Newsom thinks a 960 SAT makes him like black Americans. Let that sink in." That's from Gavin Newsom, who blamed the 2008 financial collapse on the government making it easier for black people to get mortgages. Scott Jennings, the resident conservative douchebag on CNN, tweeted, "Gavin Newsom's pitch to black people, 'Hey, I'm dumb just like you, vote for me.'" Now that's Scott Jennings from CNN. He's the resident conservative. Rupert Murdoch owns the New York Post, which is a right-wing rag. Sometimes it's fun to read, and he just launched the California Post. It's the New York Post for California. He's hoping the California Post will have the same effect on Los Angeles that the New York Post has had on New York City, which is making stupid people even dumber. That's the goal. Rupert Murdoch, who gave us Fox News. So this is from the editorial page of Rupert Murdoch's new California Post. This is the official stance of the publisher of the California Post. That's what an editorial is. Most Americans don't know the difference between an editorial, an opinion piece, a news article. They just see something. Somebody writes something that's liberal in the New York Times on the opinion page, the op-ed, but people go, "The New York Times is too liberal." Well, that's an opinion piece, you moron. But this is an editorial from the California Post. It's what the paper believes. This is what they wrote as an editorial. This is from the editorial board. Gavin Newsom, hawking himself and his memoir in Georgia on Sunday, told black Americans they should relate to him because he bombed his SATs and can barely read. Cringe. So first of all, he didn't say he bombed. I don't think he said, "I bombed my SATs." Megyn Kelly said he bombed his SATs. Let's see. I'm going to play the clip. I think Megyn Kelly read this New York Post editorial and believed it and said and repeated the phrase bombed my SATs. Let's see if maybe he said I bombed my SATs. The editorial goes on to say, this racist bid to bond with black voters comes as the Gov trots the globe and tours the nation, his focus not on California, but on his own presidential ambition. It also points to a broader reality about the Democratic Party. It's often led by politicians who slam opponents as racist while expecting a pass on their own racism. It's time we said enough. Okay? Now this is really disappointing. Professor Cornel West, one of my heroes, appeared on the Travis Smiley radio program accusing Gavin Newsom of having a white supremacist mindset based on what he said Sunday. So this is an actual tweet from the former Harvard, Princeton professor and presidential candidate, Cornel West. Professor, this is what a professor wrote. Brother Newsom could have taken a humanistic approach. He could have said, I'm just like you. I was born of a woman. I'll face the loss, pain, and death just like anyone else. But instead, when Gavin Newsom, thinks of black people, he brings up low SAT scores. That mindset sits at the core of white supremacy, the belief that black people are less beautiful, less moral, less intelligent. Don't play with us like that California governor. And then he says, hashtag truth, justice, and love. Truth, truth, truth. Let me play you. Shame on you, Cornel West. That was not the truth. And as a former Harvard and Princeton professor, before you commit something to writing, you should check to see if it's true. I believe we're going to give you an F. Here is what Gavin Newsom said.
I'm like you. I'm no better than you. I'm a 960 SAT guy. And I'm not trying to offend anyone, trying to act all there if you got 940. But literally a 960 SAT guy. I cannot, you've never seen me read a speech because I cannot read a speech. This may be the wrong business to be in. My dyslexia, I haven't overcome dyslexia. I'm living with it. I was the guy in the back of the classroom and my head down, just praying the teacher didn't call on me. I went through, I lost count of how many schools I had to go to.
Okay. So he didn't say I bombed the SATs. The California Post, the New York Post for California, said I bombed the SATs. And then Megyn Kelly said he bombed the SATs, which means Megyn Kelly never bothered to actually find out what Gavin Newsom said. She just read the lies in the California Post and said he bombed the SATs. I could play you more, but I don't want to cry. Yeah. So they took a beautiful moment, and this is what, anyway. Here is Jesse Waters, has his own show on Fox. I got to admire Jesse Waters for taking this to the next level of depravity. So Jesse Waters didn't bother to lie and say Newsom was insulting black people, calling them stupid. Jesse Waters said this.
I don't want a president who scores poorly. Mm-hmm. I don't want a president who struggles to read. Mm-hmm. I want a really smart president. Now, Gavin says...
Okay, that's what he said about people with dyslexia. Jesse Waters is saying people with dyslexia are stupid. He said, I want a really smart president, not somebody who can't read. As I keep telling you, people with dyslexia, not all of them, but many of them are some of the most brilliant people in the world. And I know that because I've been doing this as a podcast for 17 years, and I correspond with my listeners, many of whom are dyslexic. They are oral, A-U-R-A-L, oral learners. They learn mostly through their ears and not through reading. And when you learn through your ears, it stays with you forever. People process information differently. Can you imagine? Does Jesse Waters have children? Would you allow your child to call somebody with dyslexia stupid? Dear Lord, they never network. This is a television network. Nobody ever talked this way on national television before. Even at the height of Strom Thurmond and George Wallace, maybe on local television, but nobody talked this way on national television before. So Jesse Waters, Fox News, says people with dyslexia, people who can't read, are stupid. Jesse should be careful about biting the hand that feeds him, because if it weren't for people who couldn't or refused to read, there would be no Fox News. And if there were no Fox News, no other organization on the planet would hire this pasty-ass burlap sack of effluvium in a coat and tie named Jesse Waters. I am David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak.